Hello, YouTubers and fellow tankers, and even my clanmates. You have arrived at King's Court Reviews for World of Tanks. I'm Shrine King, and today we're going to go over the Tier 7 American Artillery M12, otherwise known as an SPG, which is self-propelled gun. For those who are new, I'm going to kind of cover pros, cons, what what if the line is worth it, how it compares, particular takes that you have to watch out for. Then I'll even cover a guide as well on like how to best play it. So real quick, just to let you know, the video that I have in the background here is a video of the first gun that you get for the tank. So bear in mind the way that this tank line works is the first gun is basically the worst version, and then you get an upgraded version of pretty much the same caliber. It's just it becomes like more accurate and stuff like that. So let's talk about the pros and cons. Starting with pros, to compare against the other artillery units, this one actually has really good splash. It has good alpha damage, and then on top of that, it has decent arc, and usually is a very mobile artillery. The mobility of it is one of the key factors that makes it a very nice artillery, because in the event you need to get the heck out of Dodge, because people are going to come try to get you or chase you, or you lost a flank or something, or maybe there wasn't enough defense on a flank, you absolutely can do that. Now, cons of the tank, to me, particularly in this one, was I like it when you have choices. So, like for example, let's say I have a gun that's I don't know, 100 millimeter, and then I have another one that's 140 millimeter, and maybe it's 750 alpha compared to, I don't know, 1050 alpha. I like having that option, being able to go either higher damage with bigger splash radius, knowing that yeah, the aiming and stuff like that might be less less effective, right? Or maybe not as good overall. But knowing that like I have the option of either going the smaller gun or bigger gun kind of thing. With this line, you don't have that. At least not that I've seen so far. It's essentially the same gun, just better overall. And then obviously with like all artillery units, you have like no armor, you have no eyes. Yeah, I mean, it's just the typical stuff that you can expect when it comes to artillery is really the cons to that. So like in most artillery, just so you know, like there isn't really a lot to cover overall. The playstyles are pretty much the same. There are a couple things that kind of change a little bit and stuff like that. So yeah, not too much. But what I will say is, just from information that I've looked up on the tank line, I haven't gotten that far. I'm up to the tier 8 now. But I will say that the like tier 10 and tier 9, a lot of people say is really good. You're looking at high damage, good explosion radius and stuff like that. So it's overall pretty impactful. And then it has decent penetration in comparison to the others. Now, what I will say is, in reference to the tier 6, I felt like the tier 6 was amazing. It was a lot of fun. The tier 7, the M12, nah, I mean, it was pretty mediocre in comparison. Then you get to the M40-43, which is the tier 8, and that one is really good as well. So, I mean, kind of is what it is. Like, as artillery, I don't feel like this one was really horrible performance. I just felt like, yeah, it's mediocre. Now, from there, how do you go about playing this tank, right? Or actually, I guess I should have answered, is it worth it? Yeah, absolutely. The line is definitely worth it. It is, and not only that, but like you figure, because there's only 5 artillery, if I were to make choices on which artilleries I would go for, the American's definitely one of them. So, how do you go about playing it, and where is it kind of different in the play style? So, first thing I want to note to you guys and gals is, and by the way, so the video did swap over, and now I am actually playing with the enhanced gun, right? So the gun itself is actually going to perform better, where you'll see it scopes in, it's more accurate, so on and so forth. Reload time's even quicker, stuff like that. So how do you go about playing it? So what you'll see is the first thing I want to note here is that when you watch that aim reticle, you'll see that it actually goes into like an oval shape. So I just want to note to anyone who's playing artillery, if you see the oval shape, that actually means that your round is actually being fired with a trajectory forward, not necessarily all the way up. So what that means is instead of your artillery unit actually firing at like 88 degrees in the air, you're actually firing at like 60 degrees. So that round is going to come directly towards the target, right? Kind of like a faced first type thing rather than coming from death from above kind of aspect. Now, where that's important to note is you tend to not penetrate as heavily when you're hitting tanks from the front, right? Or like directly into their armor. What is nice is when you directly hit places where they wouldn't really be that armored, and usually that's the top of the tank, right? Because the idea is the tank was more armored in the front of it because rounds were going to be coming from the front, not really from above. So that's one thing to bear in mind, and the reason I point that out is if, like, for example, you see how that tank is angled, I would want to try to aim more in the capabilities of hitting his side because his side would be less armored than his front. Now, with that said, what I tend to do is you would want to aim directly behind the target. And I want to point out that I mean like really behind the target. So I don't mean like, hey, go like an inch behind it. I mean where the butt of the tank is, you should be aiming either right on the butt or just past that butt, just like that. So you'll see right there, like I'm launching it, and then my shot wasn't that accurate, and that part kind of sucks. That's kind of the whole aspect with the M12. But what it does there is it helps me lob that round right into them. It's better to get that direct hit than just the splash damage. The only way the splash damage would work out in your benefit, where it would have been a little bit better, is if I could have nailed them right on the side of the tank, or right next to the tank, I should say, because the explosion would have burst from the ground up into the bottom of the tank. And that in turn would probably do a lot of damage. But trying to nail that shot is pretty limited. So, now suppression's really good for this, so it's definitely worth playing it as a style of like trying to be supportive of your teammates. And that is general practice when it comes to your artillery units. Like, yes, you can do some damage, but honestly, with a lot of the changes, you're not there as the real damage dealer for your team anymore. You're there to try to hit multiple targets, if possible, and suppress them. Or nail the targets that people are just going to struggle with the most. Now, what I mean with this is, for example, like, if there's an OHO on the field, it's probably going to be a tough one to deal with. If you see like the VK101P, right, because this is a tier 7, right, so the VK101P is really strong as like top tier. So let's say those like your tier 7, the tier 8's top tier. Even the tier 9s, right, so like you see Objects 257s, or the, oh, I can't even remember the name of it now. I think it's Object 268, nah, maybe not 268. I can't remember. It's the new tank destroyer line for the Soviets. So if you see like those, where they tend to have trouble, like people tend to have trouble dealing with them from the front. Now the reason I'm saying this is not that I expect you to do a lot of damage, because a lot of them are pretty well armored. It's because when you suppress them, that's 50% crew loss skill, right? So for example, the OHO goes from having a launcher that they're trying to aim at the size of like an RV to all of a sudden they're trying to hit like the entire mountain, right? So like it just blooms out their entire range, abilities to even shoot targets. So what you tend to do by doing this is you make it to where your own teammates get the benefit of them being at less effectiveness, so that they in turn can either survive or do more damage to them, or so on and so forth. And that's what you're really looking to do when you're playing artillery. The other recommendation I'll make sure to point out there is that when you know that you're going to be aiming at targets or in its general areas, and you'll see that I do this a lot, I'm hitting the T target, right? I'm telling them whereabouts I'm going to be firing at. Now, oh, and right there, that was a luck shot, man. I actually nailed that guy. So what I will point out is, for example, if you're doing this when you notice that you have teammates close, you want to make sure there's a little bit of time for them to recognize it and hopefully not go into it, and then um, try to fire, hopefully in a way that you're maybe not going to suppress or hit your own teammate. And then the other aspect there is just to give them a heads up of like where you're actually aiming at. So like if they feel like, oh, I don't know if artillery's helping me, they then know. Now, given people will then tend to use that as ways to try to like snipe out kills and things like that before you actually hit targets or something. I mean, it sucks when they do that, but it can happen. So, beautiful shot. Even though that wasn't really, that was total luck either way. Anyway, I hope this stuff is helpful. Again, please like, subscribe if you enjoy this, and if you want to see more. And let me know what tanks maybe you feel I could do a new video for, but maybe things have changed a lot. Or let me know if there's just like tanks that you personally are looking for, and I can try to get you a video to help explain pros, cons, and guides to play it. All right, thanks, and I will catch you on my next video.